Hey friend, it's Cristin. Welcome back to Shut Down Not Shaken. If you've been with me through this mini-series, you know we've been exploring how uncertainty, especially during the shutdown, can invite us to rethink how we live, work, lead, and connect. Today we're talking about something that has shaped how many of us think about human motivation and success: Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You've probably seen the pyramid before: basic needs at the bottom, self-actualization at the top. It's taught in schools, management trainings, leadership programs, everywhere. But what if I told you that Maslow actually got it wrong, or at least incomplete? That the hierarchy we've been living by actually came from an indigenous worldview that centers community, reciprocity, and belonging, not individual achievement. And that when the original author of this discovery realized he had misrepresented part of the truth, he did something we rarely see anymore. He admitted it publicly and corrected it. So today we're diving into the story behind Maslow Got It Wrong, what the Blackfoot Nation actually taught Maslow, the difference between these two worldviews, and what it teaches us about humility, authenticity, and integrity, especially in times like these. Let's start with what we know. Maslow's hierarchy of needs says that humans must first meet basic needs: food, shelter, safety, before progressing to higher levels like belonging, self-esteem, and finally self-actualization. It's often interpreted as a ladder. You climb step by step toward your best self. But when Maslow spent time with the Blackfoot Nation in Alberta, Canada, back in 1938, he encountered something radically different. According to Dr. Cindy Blackstock, a Gitson First National Scholar, the Blackfoot worldview didn't place self-actualization at the top. It placed it at the beginning. They believed that every child was born with a spark of divinity, already gifted, already whole, already imbued with purpose. From there, the community's responsibility is to nurture belonging, to make sure every person is loved, protected, and connected. Basic needs like food, shelter, and safety, those were not prerequisites for love. They were outcomes of it. From this foundation, the Blackfoot model builds upward. Self-actualization as our birthright, belonging, our first human need, basic needs and safety met through community, community actualization, where we express our gifts to serve others, and cultural perpetuity, ensuring that wisdom, balance, and care endure for generations. The TP, not a pyramid, but the TP itself, which inspired Maslow, represents interdependence. Every pole depends on every other to stand. So in the Blackfoot worldview, we rise together. So what's the key difference between the two schools of thought? Maslow's hierarchy reflects a Western individualistic mindset that success is personal, it's linear, and it's earned. The Blackfoot model reflects a relational, communal mindset that fulfillment is shared, circular, and inherent. In Maslow's world, we climb the pyramid alone. In the Blackfoot world, we were never separate. Our well-being depends on the collective. Maslow's model says, I self-actualize, then I belong. The Blackfoot model says, I belong, therefore I thrive. And that difference, belonging before achievement, changes everything. Imagine a workplace, a community, a society that started from truth, that you don't have to prove your worth to be cared for, that your purpose is already within you, and community is what brings it to life. Here's where it gets even more powerful. When Teju Ravilakan, the author of Maslow Got It Wrong, first published his piece, he made a mistake of his own. He overstated Maslow's appropriation of Blackfoot teachings. And instead of ignoring that, he listened to feedback, learned, and publicly corrected his article. He wrote that Maslow didn't intentionally steal the ideas, but that he likely feared his theory would be dismissed if he cited indigenous wisdom. Because academia at that time refused to validate non-Western knowledge, He wrote that Maslow didn't intentionally steal the ideas, but that he likely feared his theory would be dismissed if he cited indigenous wisdom, because academia at the time refused to validate non-Western knowledge. That's integrity. Revilican could have left the original article up and walked away, but instead he chose humility. He acknowledged the nuance, added citations, and reframed his argument, because truth matters more than ego. And that, to me, is the bigger lesson here. We don't have to be right to be in integrity. We just have to be willing to make it right when we realize we've missed something. We live in a world that rewards certainty. The person who speaks the loudest, posts first, or defends their stance most aggressively is often the one who wins attention. But what if we celebrated something different, the ability to listen, learn, and change? What if leadership looked like, I didn't know that, but I do now? Imagine the world we could build if more people admitted mistakes with grace or corrected misinformation publicly. Imagine the world we could build if more people admitted mistakes with grace or corrected misinformation publicly. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. Integrity is not about never being wrong. It's about how you respond when you are. And that's true for leaders, parents, friends, for all of us. The courage to say, I got it wrong, opens the door for connection. It tells others you can be human here. And in a season like this, where so many of us are furloughed, laid off, waiting or feeling powerless, that kind of authenticity is how we're going to support our communities during this time. The Blackfoot Nation taught that a thriving community begins with belonging, not achievement. Maslow's interpretation flipped that, and so did the culture that embraced it. Now, the question for us is, what story are we continuing to live by? Do we believe we must climb alone, or that we rise together? Do we cling to being right, or are we open to being real? You can't build community while defending your ego. You can't experience belonging while pretending to be perfect. So today, let's practice both presence and humility. Let's be brave enough to question what we've been taught, curious enough to learn from other ways of knowing, and grounded enough to admit when we've been wrong. That's how we stand in integrity. That's how we create connection. And that's how we live in truth. And though the government may be shut down, our capacity to grow, to listen, and to love doesn't have to be. Take a deep breath, pay attention to this moment, and respond. And if the government is still shut down, I'll see you tomorrow.